From 1972, that was I Saw the Light by our guest today, Todd Rundgren. As a singer, songwriter, producer, multi-instrumentalist, and probably about 10 other titles I'm forgetting here, Todd Rundgren is truly one of the great visionaries of rock music. In fact, he'll be paying tribute to another set of visionaries in an upcoming series of shows, which we'll talk about in just a minute.
Fine with me.
But first, I'd like to get the story behind the song we just heard, I Saw the Light.
Well, it's famously, or at least I make a big deal about it every time I talk about it, it was a turning point for me because I just sat down at the piano and 20 minutes later the song was done. And I had no idea what the song was, I had no idea what the chords would be or the lyrics would be. It's just like I had gotten down into such a formula of songwriting that it was like Steve Allen, you give him 3 notes
right,
and a couple of words and he'll write a song right in front of you. And it actually, when I realized that, that's when I started to lean towards, a Wizard, a True Star. I was making records the way everybody else made records, and I was writing songs the way everybody else writes songs, but when they started calling me the male Carole King, that bothered me because I didn't want to be compared to other people. So that's when I decided that A Wizard, a True Star would just be a record unlike any other, and I think I accomplished that.
Well, you sure did. I mentioned this tour that you're currently on. It's a tribute to the Beatles albums Rubber Soul and Revolver. And it's sort of a sequel to a series of shows you had done some time ago. And you're joined by Christopher Cross, Jason Scheff of Chicago, Joey Molland of Badfinger, Denny Laine of Wings and the Moody Blues. You'll be performing in our area June 8th at the Count Basie Center for the Arts in Red Bank, Sony Hall in New York City on June 12th, June 18th at Westbury, and other dates up and down the East Coast. It's a big, big tour. Tell us a little bit about this particular show and the focus on these 2 albums.
Well, as you have mentioned, we've done this Beatle tribute thing before. Last time we did the White Album, and they usually tended to be, a reproduction of a classic Beatle record, like Sgt. Pepper or Abbey Road or the White Album.
Right.
And when the producer of the show said he wanted to do another round, I think he suggested Let It Be, and I said, I don't want to do any more of what are, to me, post-Beatles records, When the Beatles retired from touring live, the songwriting just became different after that. Previously, when the band was spending so much time on the road, that's when they wrote. And so there was a lot more material that was somewhat collaborative between Lennon and McCartney, and they let George write occasionally
right.
as well. But after the band stopped touring, they would just write their songs at home and then bring them into the studio. And so the difference between, the McCartney songs and the Lennon songs just became more and more exaggerated as time went on. And then at some point, like, for instance, the White Album, they would just start bringing in any ridiculous, goofy idea that occurred to them. And the other guys would have to let them do it, Right. And so we wanted to do the Beatles at their songwriting peak, which is generally acknowledged to be, the period around Rubber Soul and Revolver. They had developed a confidence in their ability to write hits that essentially gave them the freedom to drop the formula and just do anything that they could think of, like start using string quartets or, backwards tape loops and that sort of thing. And it brought a whole kind of, creativity. They were using the studio in ways that people hadn't before, and a whole level of originality, as well as, developing, the basic skills of lyrics and melodies and arrangements and things like that. So it's generally considered the Beatles' halcyon period between those two records. And it also coincides, I think, with a lot of us almost committing our lives to the Beatles at this point, because everybody's doing whatever the Beatles do. If the Beatles want to smoke pot, I want to smoke pot, you know. If the Beatles want to go to India, geez, I wish I could go to India, you know. If they want to have an anti-war protest and sleep in bed all day, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that too. It's
right.
They just became more than music, you know. They were just the cultural touchstone of the generation. And a lot of that is, you know, is sort of exposed in the music. The weird sort of she said, and tomorrow never knows of John is obviously reflecting his drug experiences. And Paul McCartney is becoming a much more seasoned lyricist and an arranger in ways. So it's, for us at least, it's something of a challenge because of the great variety of what's going on. But at the same time, we all have such, you know, respect for the genius that went into it, you know, and we all recall the effects that those records had on us when we first heard them. And that's something that's, I think, fueling us in any case. You know, I think the audience, if they lived through that period, you know, they may be experiencing the same thing.
The Beatles with She Said, and you can hear this song, among others, from this album, Revolver, and the Rubber Soul album, performed live by our guest today, Todd Rundgren, along with Jason Scheff of Chicago, Christopher Cross, Denny Laine, Joey Molland of Badfinger, and it's all happening June 8th at the Count Basie Center for the Arts in Red Bank, Sony Hall in New York City on June 12th, June 18th, coincidentally, Paul McCartney's birthday, that's at Westbury, and you've worked with everyone on this roster in some capacity before, right?
In one context or another. I mean, we all did, well, Denny Laine wasn't on the last tour. He wasn't on the White Album tour, but, you know, I had worked with Denny years and years ago on a similar show. Of course, I produced a record for Badfinger, so I've known Joey for quite a while. I've done things with Christopher historically. New to me, essentially, was Jason Scheff. I had never worked with him before. But we get along really well and have a lot of fun on stage. We've got our own little clown show going over on stage left, so...
And you were talking about that Beatle influence before, and, you know, it even extends beyond the music. It also extends to how bands look, and it happened then, it happens today even. Four guys get together and want to form a band, and the first thing they do is try to look like the Beatles. It's amazing.
Well, that was part of it, you know, was the hair. I mean, I went for that right away because I hated getting my hair cut. I thought, this is the greatest excuse in the world. I can't cut my hair. I'm in a band now, you know, and you know, the fashion, but also, you know, whatever the Beatles were taking, you're going to take that, you know, whatever the Beatles are hyping, you know, that's the thing you want to know about or get involved in. They had this connection with the culture and the ability to, almost chameleon-like ability to adapt to new things and to take advantage of new things in a way that other bands probably didn't think to. You know, it's like other bands would probably just, you know, they'd take acid, but then they'd continue to write the same old sappy pop songs. Right, but the Beatles decided to write songs about taking acid.
From 1982, that was Utopia with One World. Our guest today is Todd Rundgren. Again, he's going to be performing along with Christopher Cross, Jason Scheff, Joey Molland, and Denny Laine on a tribute to the Beatles albums Rubber Soul and Revolver. Those dates again, June 8th at the Count Basie Center for the Arts in Red Bank, New Jersey, Sony Hall in New York City on June 12th, Westbury on June 18th, and in addition to these songs from Rubber Soul and Revolver, you're going to be, each of you, playing some of your own material, correct?
Yeah, well, that's pretty standard. Unfortunately, it always has to be your most familiar material, so you wind up doing the same two songs. No matter what Beatles songs we're doing, you're still going to do. I'm still doing Hello, It's Me, and I Saw the Light, because even though my audience might have heard plenty of that, there's always going to be fans for the other guys in the band who may not be as familiar with the more exotic parts of your songwriting, which I would tend to exploit if I knew it was just my audience.
Hey, before we go, do you mind if I ask you about one of your more recent songs?
Sure thing.
I'm intrigued by this song, Godiva Girl, that you did with The Roots.
I had actually started working with The Roots years and years ago. I think the first thing was I contributed something to a project that Questlove was doing that was about the band Squeeze, and I did something for that record, and I was unawares that Questlove and some of the guys in the Roots were actually fans. So at one point, we sort of proposed to write some stuff. It's an interesting situation because I don't know whether it's still this way, but when we first started working together, they would live in Philadelphia on the weekends, but when they were doing the show, which is most people, they have 5 episodes of the show, but most of these shows they do, they tape on four days and do 2 shows on Thursday, so everyone gets a 3-day weekend. And the Roots go back to Philadelphia afterwards. So when they're in New York in the studio, when they're not actually doing a show, they've got a little recording situation set up in their rehearsal place, and they just start working on little song ideas all the time. And I think sometimes sleeping in the studio. And so they have all of these instrumental things that have no words or anything like that, but they're, somebody gets in the band gets an idea and they'll record it, and it may be a long one or a short one. But they had quite a collection of those. And when I heard that, I said, well, let's do a collaboration album. I'll write songs to these musical bits. But what I wanted to do, what I thought the Roots would go along with, is something more like Frank Zappa. Since Frank Zappa's gone, nobody does cool music, but with really goofy themes and stuff, goofy lyrics. And so I wanted to do something like a Frank Zappa record. And they would give me the songs, and they might have a title but no lyrics. So they gave me a song and said, Godiva Girl. And I thought, well, what could this be about? It turned out just like one of the guys that works there had a crush on a girl who worked in a chocolate store, but I didn't know that.
Right.
Okay. So I just started writing, goofy metaphors about candy and stuff, and that's essentially where it came from. And I've gotten more of those. I've got at least 3 more finished songs in that sort of vein. But as time went on, we both got kind of busy. Quest had actually been thinking about a more serious, R&B record. And so my goofy lyrics, he had a little trouble getting used to them.
And there is a new album coming, right?
There is an album coming from me. It's called Space Force, but I actually delivered it almost 2 years ago. And my label insists on putting all formats out at the same time. And I don't know if you've heard, but there's this big vinyl shortage.
Oh.
I think they're blaming it on Adele because she put out an unexpected record,
Right.
But it just got hard to schedule getting LPs made, vinyl LPs, and so the last I heard, it's coming out sometime around Thanksgiving. If it comes out sooner, I'll be happy, but not holding my breath.
All right. Well, at some point, there is a new album coming, at some point.
There is a new album. It's done. It's delivered. It'll be out sometime. Yes.
Thank you so much, Todd. You have a great rest of your day.
You too. Take care.